Chris, are we recording? Are we set? Okay. One moment. All right, we will call the November 18th, 2021 Board of Works and Safety to order. Are there any modifications to the agenda, Chris?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to our resolutions. The first is a request to approve a special screening grants and landscaping commitment for certain residential properties adjacent to the Nickel Plate Trail. Megan.
Yes, good morning, Megan Vukasich. The item before you is to approve special agreements for residents along the Nickel Plate Trail. So back in January of 2020, this board did approve the Nickel Plate Trail screening grant, and that was for all single-family residents along the trail. Since we've approved that grant, there's been certain areas identified, and based on their site constraints and the grade changes between their properties and the trail, there's been certain properties that are eligible for an alternative screening grant. And so there's really two areas that this is going to apply to. One is Cottingham Estates. The grade change is 4+ feet in that area. And then a Heritage Green, they're also seeking an alternative agreement for their screening in which the city will plant plans within the trail right-of-way, because that'll better help screen those residents from the trail.
Well, I appreciate the work by staff and sensitivity to certain areas along the trail, so this can be a win-win for both the residents and folks using the trail. So I'll go ahead and make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, is there, I'll take a vote to see. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Sorry, I'm a little slow this morning. Got to get back in the rhythm of this. Next, thank you, Megan. Yeah, a resolution of the City of Fishers concerning authorization for execution of INDOT agreements. Jason?
Good morning. For the record, Jason Taylor, Director of Engineering. Before you is the resolution for the Community Crossing Matching Grant that we've recently been awarded by INDOT for $1 million. This grant is going to be utilized for the next item on the agenda for Technology Drive Rehabilitation Contract. Just need this as part of the resolution. Essentially, INDOT is requiring the board to execute or allow the mayor to execute, sign off on the agreement as a single authority.
Any questions for Jason on this? Certainly grateful to pick up $1 million from the state. So is there a motion? Motion by Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the project that you just mentioned, a resolution to our request for bid award of Technology Drive Rehab contract. Jason?
Thank you. Again, for the record, Jason Taylor, Director of Engineering. Before you is the bid award for Technology Drive Rehabilitation. The project is at the Northeast Commerce Park. It's currently a concrete roadway that we're going to rubblize and repave as asphalt. We're trying to integrate as part of the project, we're integrating some of the technology, or for future technology, should I rephrase, such as adding conduit and some handholds so that there could be opportunities to add into it. The lowest bidder, the lowest most responsive bidder was Morphe Construction with the amount of $2.997 million. And in the packet you can see there were two more bids as well from Reith Riley and I believe it was White Construction.
Okay. Any questions for Jason?
No, much needed.
Much needed for sure. If you drive back there, you can understand why we're doing this.
No plans for any of the utilities to bore through?
Yeah, if anyone needs, that's a note to the utilities. If anyone needs to bore through there, please do that in the next 6 months. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second? Second by Jason. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jason. Next, we have a request to approve annual contract with UKG Dimensions. Jennifer.
Good morning. Jennifer Pineda with the Business Solutions Group. This is a request to approve our renewal contract with UKG Dimensions, which is our timekeeping, payroll, human resources software. It was bumped up to the board's level this year due to an increase in staffing with the health department.
Gotcha. Any questions?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Next is a request to approve professional services agreement with the Wellington Fishers Banquet and Conference Center. Sarah Sanquist, Parks Director.
Good morning, Sarah Sanquist, Director of Parks and Recreation. Before you, you have an agreement to work with the Wellington and Fishers to take over operations of Saxony Hall. We believe that we will both increase level of service to our residents as well as generate revenue for the city.
Any questions for Sarah? This is obviously a departure from what we've done in the past, but I think it's a smart way to keep headcount low and probably generate greater revenue. Seeing no questions, is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, just a quick comment. The payment terms look really favorable for us, so nice
Yeah,
work. Yeah,
for sure.
so I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Sarah. Next is a resolution of the City of Fishers extending a certain temporary occupancy agreement for the vaccination clinic. Chris?
Thank you. For the record, Chris Greisel, attorney for the City of Fishers. As this board may recall, during the pandemic, the city entered into a lease for the Marsh Building for our mass vaccination site. And the item before you today is simply extending that agreement for a month-to-month tenancy beginning on January 11th. Our current lease term expires at that time. And so it'll be under the same terms and conditions, just a month-to-month tenancy. I will tell you that as of November 8th, the mass vaccination clinic has provided nearly 65,000 cumulative doses of the vaccine to date. So we're still seeing a very high utilization of that clinic, but we understand that there could be a wind down here in the near future.
Yeah, I think between booster shots, which I think maybe yet this week they'll approve for anyone who's had a shot, and then also I know we just found out yesterday we got 3,000 additional vaccines for youth. So I'm sure we'll be well north of 70, 75, or 80,000 vaccines running through there even before the end of the year, more than likely. So I'm glad we're able to at least go month to month, and we'll wind down once it's needed. Is there a motion to approve this extension of the lease?
So moved.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to a resolution of the City of Fishers approving a project agreement with Hub and Spoke.
I'm going to go ahead and do this as well in place of Megan Baumgartner, who's out with some sick kids this morning. For the record, Chris Greisel, City of Fishers. As this board probably doesn't frequently interview or entertain project agreements that the city enters into, but from time to time we do, especially when there are property interests that are involved with the city. And this resolution before you here is a project agreement with Hub and Spoke, which has been approved by all city bodies with the exception of the board to date. So the Hub and Spoke development, which you all know by our Nickel Plate Trail, is acquiring land that's immediately adjacent to that project site and developing a new building immediately adjacent to where Hub and Spoke is currently to date. The city is providing through our Town Hall Building Corporation a commercial property grant to allow Hub and Spoke to build certain public infrastructure, which includes a parking lot, and that parking lot will be immediately adjacent to our Nickel Plate Trail. So what the board is being asked to do is enter into, as part of this project agreement, an easement agreement with the developer, which is going to allow the city to have access to certain parking spots immediately adjacent to the Nickel Plate Trail for 20 years.
So I think the why behind this is since Hub and Spoke has been built and the trail has been paved, their parking lot is getting filled up even on weekdays with people that are accessing the trail, which is great news, but it doesn't leave enough parking for all of the businesses that are in there. And so we want to make sure that we have adequate trailheads, and this allows us to ensure that we've got some ample parking for folks that are driving in that want to utilize the trail, particularly once we even go south of, right now it's only 2 Hub and Spoke. As we go even further south, we can anticipate even more people pulling in there. And I think there's even some consideration of restaurants potentially moving into Hub and Spoke, which will drive even more parking requirements. So I think this is a good addition in terms of public infrastructure. I will go ahead and make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jason. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. In the same vein, we have a resolution of the City of Fishers approving a project agreement for Techway And Chris, do you want to talk through this?
Sure, for the record, Chris Greisel, City Attorney. So similar format to the resolution that was before you with Hub and Spoke. Rebar Development is acquiring the Techway property, which is right here on the tip of Technology Drive, and is investing over $7 million to rehab the existing building and build a subsequent building on adjacent land. As part of that deal, Rebar is building certain public infrastructure. They're going to be constructing a trailhead and a plaza right next to the Nickel Plate Trail, which they are going to be conveying over to the city. And there's also a parking lot that's going to be developed where the city, similar to our last resolution, is going to be entering into an easement agreement to have access to that parking lot during non-business hours, which again is going to provide more access for users occupying the Nickel Plate Trail. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jason, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to a resolution of the City of Fishers approving First Amendment to revised land acquisition agreement.
Again, for the record, Chris Greisel, City Attorney. The resolution before you is with regards to the Maple Dell development. So Hageman and the city's redevelopment commission and the city entered into a certain land acquisition agreement whereby Hageman agreed to purchase the land, which is primarily the Maple Dell neighborhood, and the commission agreed to acquire that property if no development occurred by a certain date, and that date was December 31st, 2021. The resolution before you is simply extending that land acquisition agreement through the May 31st, 2022. The city, as a body separate from the redevelopment commission, was a party to the original land acquisition agreement, and therefore we're asking for your approval of the extension as well.
Any questions for Chris?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now moving on to our 5G cell tower considerations. We have a few neighborhoods on the agenda today. We'll walk through each one of these individually and consider them as we go. So we'll start with a request to approve residential waivers to install small cell facilities in Fishers Point. Tammy.
Good morning. For the record, Tammy Houston, Engineering Department Assistant Engineer. Before you is a request to approve a small cell structure within Fishers Point. There is one location that Verizon is proposing, and is at the intersection of Boston Way and Harrington Lane. It is replacing an existing street light. A meeting was held with the HOA and residents and Verizon in October. Since it is replacing an existing street light, they are requesting that a light still be on the new structure. There was some concerns about health and safety. There was one resident that was concerned about health and safety within 200 feet, within the 200-foot radius of the letters that were sent out, but they were not on the call, so we could not address her questions directly. And Verizon is here if you have any questions.
Great. Is there anyone here from Fishers Point that would like to speak on the matter? Seeing none. This placement seems consistent with what we look for in locations, and if it's replacing an existing light and providing that aesthetic as well as that service, it seems like that's a reasonable location. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Tammy. Moving on to the next neighborhood, which will be a request to approve residential waivers to install small cell facilities in Harrison Park for Verizon.
Tammy Houston, City of Fishers, Assistant Engineer. Before you is one location within Harrison Park that is being proposed by Verizon for a small cell. This is a new structure. It will not be replacing a streetlight. We met with residents and Verizon on August of 2021 to discuss this. The HOA and residents in the area are against a 5G small cell structure going in within their neighborhood. There was lots of conversation about moving it to Allisonville Road, to back of other private property. Verizon is stating that they do not plan on relocating this because it, excuse me, and moving it anywhere else would affect their coverage area. There is a gas line that runs parallel to the roadway, but they stated that they could not go along Robinson Run rather than Harrison Parkway because there's a gas line that runs along that roadway that they would not be able to squeeze in. I believe in the packet there is some emails and some questions that a resident directly affected by this has presented to Verizon about the technology itself. And I believe the resident is here today. If he might want to speak, but Verizon is also here.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this matter? Please, sir. Come on up. If you just state your name for the record.
Sure. Brian Nurse, I'm a resident. The 5G towers, I'm directly affected by the 5G tower. It's going right in front of my house. So I'm just here to kind of petition you about the permit approval. August 25th, we had a stakeholder meeting with Verizon as well as Tammy Houston and Mackenzie Poole. And I don't think Verizon was very prepared for the meeting. I had a bunch of questions that I expected that they would have a reasonable answer to. I did some investigating into the Telecommunications Act and what's required for permit approval. And from what I read is there's two basic requirements that they have to meet to get a permit approved, and that is there has to be an existence of a significant gap in service coverage, and that the proposed installation is the least intrusive means of remedying that gap, and there's no less intrusive means available. So my first question to Verizon was how the proposed 5G tower provides for and meets the coverage gap for Harrison Park. And the Verizon representative on the phone responded to me that the planned towers are strategically planned by computer modeling and meet the coverage gap. I said, okay. So my next follow-up question to Verizon was, well, if it meets the coverage gap, then you should not need any more towers inside Harrison Park. And he said, well, I don't know yet. We need to put the tower in and test it. And my next question would be, well, if you have already done all your computer modeling, how would you not know that the 5G tower that you're proposing meets your coverage gap? And he again just responded that they were strategically planned by computer modeling. So my next basic question to him was, what is the range of the tower that is being proposed outside my house? And the Verizon representative said he could not answer this question because he didn't know, and if he did, it would be proprietary information. So basic engineering analysis tells me that if you don't know the range of the tower that's going outside my house, how do you know it meets the coverage gap? Also, I asked him, I said, there are many residents inside Harrison Park that already get a 5G signal inside all of Harrison Park, and there is not a single tower on any of our streets. So I asked him, I says, if we already have a 5G signal in the neighborhood, how come you can't provide a 5G signal inside our neighborhood without any towers? And again, he responded and said he did not know the answer to these questions. After about 45 minutes of questioning Verizon, I was interrupted by Mackenzie Poole stating that Verizon was not prepared for the meeting and the questions that I proposed, and I needed to present all my questions in writing to Tammy Houston, and I did that. On September 17th, Verizon finally responded to all the questions I gave to Tammy, and most of it is just word salad. To quote exactly what Verizon replied to my questions is they said that they engage in a very lengthy process that typically takes several years to complete. The process includes multiple phases and teams and begins with analyzing network traffic coverage and service levels. We identify suitable locations for placement of facilities and include an analysis of the specific geography of the area of existing assets, studying and analyzing the laws affecting wireless facilities. That sounds like quite a bit of analysis that they've done for the tower that they're proposing. So my basic question is, if they're telling me that the proposed tower meets the coverage gap and it's the least intrusive means available for providing 5G coverage for all of Harrison Park, then they should not need another tower in Harrison Park. I'm asking you to at least table the permit request until they can answer and state emphatically that no more towers will be required in Harrison Park. They can't have it both ways. They can't tell you that they've done all this analysis and engineering and it meets the coverage gap, and then later on down the line come down and say, yeah, we need another tower.
Thank you for that, sir. Chris, can you provide to the board some guidance on what the telecom industry is required to provide in terms of rationale for why it is they want to put the tower in our consideration of approving these permits?
Well, before we do that, maybe it'd be best to have Verizon come respond first to that statement, and then I'm happy to
Sure.
fill in any gaps.
Good morning.
Morning.
For the record, Russell Brown with the law firm of Clark Quinn, Moses, Scott & Grahn, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. So I'll answer a couple questions and then kind of get some practical answers too. Keep in mind, I'm not an RF engineer. I'm just
Sure.
an attorney playing an RF engineer. But we believe that state statute, has provided opportunities to provide this service in the right-of-way with some parameters and the city has established and Verizon has worked through over the last several years on these sites and others. One of those requirements is to simply indicate that a proposed solution is not technologically feasible. So if you're attempting to move sites around and move them in or out of communities, technological infeasibility is one of the reasons that a provider can object to that requested move. As it relates to how do we go about selecting sites and how do we know, how come I can't say today that there's never going to be another site in a neighborhood? And I can tell you that I've been doing telecom work for 15 years. The needs for the telecom industry have exploded over that period of time. And so it would be foolish to stand up and say that we'll never need another tower within X feet of this, within X miles of this, because needs continually increase. What often happens, I'm going back and doing macro sites, so tall towers that we call capacity sites. That doesn't mean that you don't have coverage in a specific area. It means that you have insufficient capacity, and so it's a slow network response. It's lag time. For 5G and the ultra-band technology is the exact opposite of what you're attempting to accomplish. This is attempting to be lightning fast, no lag time, and so that's why you are having significant concentrations of these sites in various areas. So it would be impossible to say, I will never need another tower in this neighborhood because you do not know, there could be 50 customers in here, there could be 20 customers in here, there could be 5 customers in here. Until a site is on air, until a site is utilized, until that technology is available, it's not possible to say there will never need to be another site in this area. So this site, the goal of this site does provide coverage as we understand it will be, and as the demands that we understand or anticipate them to be. But the telecom industry is a reactive industry as far as meeting customer needs and customer demands. If it was the ability to finally estimate and guess where things would happen on a going forward basis, I would have less work, or they would be providing that on a a proactive basis, but it is very much a reactive industry as far as meeting and complying with customer demand. So it is not feasible, unfortunately, to say that there would never be one in here, because the demand may be such that you might have a need for one or more additional towers at this time. But providing it here does meet the reasonable expectations of what we believe service needs are in this community, in this neighborhood at this time.
Chris, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, the only other thing I would add is, and this board knows this because we've had this conversation a few times. State law specifically prohibits us as a board, as a permitting authority, from getting into the business decisions of Verizon with respect to the applications they've put forth. Notwithstanding that, we do have a waiver process, and within the parameters of that waiver process, we do have the authority to judge and weigh the factors that we've laid out within that process as it applies to the specific locations.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board, Jason or Jeff? Consideration of this location? Rebut? If you have another comment, feel free to come forward and state your comment. And can you tell me the specific address that you live?
Yeah, 13880 Robinson Run. I'm right there on the corner where the blue dot is.
Okay.
The person who just spoke is an attorney. I'm just asking for substantial evidence that the engineering plan that they've proposed meets the coverage gap for the entire neighborhood. We know that a 5G tower is going into Harrison Park. We're not here to stop it. We'd love to, but we know that's not going to happen, and we know that the powers of this governing body can't stop it either. But all I'm asking is for substantial evidence, and I can get into some more details, is there's another green dot on that map that you see, and that's another 5G tower, and it's approximately 600 feet from the blue dot that they're proposing. So one of the questions I proposed to Verizon is, why are you proposing a tower 600 feet from one that already exists, and yet the one to the east, where it's even off the page where you can kind of see Harrison Park and the baseball diamonds, there's no tower over there. So a quick Google search for me found out that these ultra 5G towers have 1,000-foot range, although Verizon says they can't confirm or deny what the range of the tower is that's being proposed. All I'm asking is that the permit approval be tabled until Verizon can confirm exactly what the range is of the tower that they're proposing, and they can verify that the range of that tower will communicate with all other towers they're proposing.
So to that question for the attorney from Verizon, I think I'm going to bifurcate this here slightly based on the gentleman's request. I understand the inability for you to guarantee that there will never be another tower in this due to capacity. I think the question the gentleman asks you is, as it stands today, from a coverage standpoint, not a capacity standpoint, but from a coverage standpoint, does this tower provide adequate coverage for the neighborhood of Harrison Point?
I think the answer is it provides coverage. It meets the coverage objectives that Verizon has identified for this neighborhood.
Okay, and I fully understand that it doesn't, if everyone signs up and it's full throttle, from a capacity standpoint, it may not be adequate.
Correct.
Which is what you articulated previously, and why you're reluctant to guarantee that there'll never be another tower here. But to the specific gentleman's question that he asked your group prior and that he's asking for an answer to, in terms of will this tower provide the coverage needed as it stands today? That's the question.
Yeah, this meets the coverage objective that Verizon has identified for this neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Sir, does that answer your specific question on the coverage perspective?
Well, I mean, I'd like to know the range of the tower, because the towers to the east are more than 2,000 feet away, and Google right now tells me that 5G towers only have a range of 1,000 feet. So by basic math, that tower cannot communicate with any of the towers they're proposing out to the east.
Sir, go ahead.
I'll just answer. Unlike macro towers, unlike macro towers, the small cell towers are intended to serve more of a stationary target instead of kind of a moving target. And so the interconnectedness is not as important. It's important, but it's not as important as when you're driving down the road and on a call, if you have macro towers that don't have the ability to communicate to each other, that's where you have dropped calls. Here, this
Because
is
technically, there's fiber that is run to this
correct.
tower, and then from there, it goes out to the home.
Back calls into others. So ideally, you would have an entire neighborhood covered by towers, and so the answer to the question about how much coverage does it provide is the favorite law school answer. It depends. It depends on how many users there are. It depends on what time of year. If you have trees with leaves on them or trees without leaves on them. There's a variety of answers. So generally, the answer is approximately 1,000 feet. But that may or may not apply in this specific section because of all those various factors.
Got you. Thank you, sir. Jeff or Jason, anything else from your perspective? Is there a motion in consideration of this tower?
I believe it's consistent in terms of location and aesthetics that we've approved previously, so I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Jason. I do agree with Jeff's comments that this is a consistent location in terms of placement that we have been okay with in other neighborhoods. I do hope that we've held Verizon accountable for answering a variety of the questions that the neighborhood has had. And so I will be in favor as well. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item. We have Morgan Meadows. Tammy?
Tammy Houston, Assistant Engineer. Before you is a resolution to approve a small cell structure within Morgan Meadows. This is at the corner of Meadows Drive and Royal Drive. This one came originally before you last year prior to Verizon's pause. At that time, it was tabled. The board had suggested moving it to the south to the apartment complex, and Verizon stated that they would not be able to do that as it does not meet their coverage objective. They came back this year with the same location. We did not have a neighborhood meeting on this one. We did send out letters, but we did not receive any responses.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah, go
Sure,
ahead.
I mean, I don't recall if this is this the exact same location? I mean, I think we rejected it. If it is, then we rejected it because it's directly, I mean, literally right out the front window of the home across the street from the blue dot. So that does not meet the consistent application that we've provided Verizon. I mean, there seem to be some alternative locations. If they can't go south, there certainly seems to be
Corner of
locations
Francis
at
Street.
Francis and Royal. And maybe that's 100 feet. It's hard to tell on the map, but there certainly seems to be a better alternative here.
Verizon, would you like to comment on why there was no alternatives provided?
Yeah, I don't know if north was ever discussed.
Okay.
So I think my recollection in the notes that I have was the request of the board previously was to go south. And so going south, as you'll see, there's another site approved kind of to the south already. I can certainly ask about the move to the north if that meets the coverage objectives, because
I would be intrigued at the corner of Francis and Meadows.
Right across the street there.
Yeah.
So kind of moving north.
Just straight north,
north.
100 feet. Yeah, I just don't know if homes are. There's also, if you could take a look, there's a, Jason, you probably recall this, there's a gas line, is there not, that goes through this area that can't be built on? And might be an ideal location to, in the sense of setting it near, it might even be right at the corner of Francis, I don't recall. So there's an easement where you wouldn't be building near a home, it'd be an ideal location right along the street. So if we could make a motion to table this and take a look at that. I think there are some alternatives that could be easy wins for everyone on this. I'll make a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Moving on. Final one for today is River Glen. Tammy?
Tammy Houston, City of Fishers, Assistant Engineer. Before you is resolution to approve some 5G small cells in River Glen. This neighborhood was originally brought to you last year, where 2 locations had been approved at that point in time. The rest had been tabled. We did speak with the HOA again in October, and there was one location that was discussed as being revised, and that is at the corner of Clubhouse Drive and River Glen Drive. It's 7223. It was originally planned to replace an existing street light. The HOA had requested it to be moved across the street. Originally, the HOA was hoping that the City of Fishers would be able to take any of the street lights that were removed. Speaking with Department of Public Works, these lights do not match our standard lights, so they have no use for them. So the HOA has requested that the street lights stay and the new structure be put across the street. And there is one also.
So can we just, for the sake of simplicity here, Tammy, can we just walk through each one that they're requesting and approve them on their, so how many are we requesting today?
So there's only one that has actually been submitted for a permit. All the others we did speak about with the HOA. So I don't know, if there's a motion made on those?
Let's address the one that's for the permit.
So the one that was submitted for a permit is 7298 Pembroke Circle. That is at the intersection of Pembroke Place and Pembroke Circle. That one is a new structure. The HOA is okay with that proposed location. They would prefer a different style of light rather than the typical acorn style that is proposed. They would prefer a carriage style light, which matches their existing street lights, yard lights that residents have in the area.
Were the residents of this area, were they on the call? Did they comment, or was it just the HOA?
The HOA, but my understanding was the HOA spoke with all of the residents affected by all of these locations. And one of the members is here if
Michael?
he would like to speak.
So before, Tammy, was Verizon in agreement with the alternative light pole, with the decorative items
With
that they
the
want?
carriage style light, yes, they were
Okay.
okay with that.
Mike?
Hi, good morning. Michael Colby. I'm president of the Homeowners Association, and I'm going to deviate a little bit from this discussion. For the record, I want to commend the staff, Tammy Houston and Mackenzie Poole. I know this is a very, very difficult and a trying area with the Verizon towers, and they've done a good job.
Thanks,
trying to manage the opposition. Also, for the record, I'm opposed to any 5G tower going into my community, especially in the interior streets. Along the River Glen Drive, we have some streetlights, and we're okay with that. But going inside the interior, we have no interior lights other than the street light, the yard lights. But going on, I have gone out and talked to the neighbors that are directly impacted by the location of this. I have not talked to 200 of them. As Tammy's indicated, we'd like to have the tower consistent with what we have in the yard with our yard lights, and I understand that's the case. I can come back up and address the other issue if you don't want to.
Yeah, let's just hold up 1 second.
Okay, fine.
Let's consider this one first.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike, for your work on meeting with the neighbors, doing your diligence on that. If there are no other questions or concerns on 7298, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries for the permit, or consideration for 7298. Tammy, moving on.
There's one location at 11805 River Glen Drive. That one was approved last year with the understanding that it was going to be replacing an existing streetlight. Based on the conversations, again, like I stated earlier, the HOA was hopeful that Fisher's DPW was able to take the light and use it in other locations, but they stated that that does not match our standard light, and they would have no use for the street light. So the HOA is requesting that that approval be rescinded and allow Verizon to submit a permit between the two existing lights as a standalone structure with no lights on it. Verizon is okay with that as long as there's not a denial on the new location. They don't want to
So it's
rescind an approval.
Not the same location. This would be a
It would,
different
it
one?
would be in the same general area. So 11805 is in the median area.
Yep.
So
Can you
there's,
reference that with respect to what, like 7223, where, like what's on the board? Like which one are we,
11805.
the 11805 is down on the south end.
It's down here in the median, basically. It's towards the entrance or?
Yeah, it's towards the entrance.
So is the anticipation that it would stay in a median?
It would stay in the median.
Okay.
There's two lights between the two,
Yeah.
on the median, and it would be
Gotcha.
placed somewhere in between those two lights without a light.
Understood. So Mike, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I did ask last time that Verizon take our light away and replace it with their pole, with the anticipation that the city would be able to use that
Yeah.
light. Now, I did communicate with Eric
Yeah.
Pentel via email. I had not had a verbal conversation with him, and he said he didn't think the light was compatible. I still think it is. We have the single pole acorn light in the medians, but in that particular location, we have the double light.
Yeah.
Very similar, if not the same, as what's going along 116th Street. And I sent a second email to him with a picture of that
Yeah.
structure and said, I think he was thinking of the single acorn light and not the double light. Those things cost a couple $1,000s.
right.
And I spent $9,000 a few years back to have them all painted. And it's a shame in my mind to take that pole down and just throw it away. So this is kind of a, let's keep the light, but,
Yeah.
I guess we have to get the tower.
Sure.
It was approved in November of 2020, but I'd like to have somebody take a second, closer look
Yeah.
at that light, so we don't have to go back and
So
redo the
why
permit.
don't we do this for expediency purposes? Jason, if your team could just, I'm okay approving this contingent upon one of our team double checking whether or not that pole could be reused. Does that make sense? And then if it can't, then you've already got the approved new location, but if we can, I think Verizon, you would be okay with replacing what we were planning on doing. Is that fair? Yeah. So we'll take another look, Mike, per your request, and either way, we'll consider this. So is there a motion to approve 11805's new location contingent upon our engineering department doing one more check of the light structure?
So let me get, so I'm clear. So then if it's not available, then it's not approved?
No, they would, so if the light pole that is out there today is compatible with what we use in our streets and our public rights of way, then what Mike, the HOA president, is saying is that we can go ahead and replace that one and put a new light pole up in their neighborhood, and then the Department of Public Works could take their light and go use it somewhere else in the city. So Mike's trying to do the city a solid by providing us an extra light pole. So we just need to do one more due diligence on that. And if it's not the case, and it isn't compatible, then they're willing to just have Verizon put one of these towers right in between the two lights they already have.
Oh, so there's three, it's sandwiched in between?
Yeah, it'd be
It's
between
not
the two lights.
replacing it?
Right.
The new one would not have a new light on it.
Yeah, it would just be a
would just
pole
be
in the
the
middle.
Okay, so you, okay, I got you.
So I want to go ahead and approve the new one that would be in the middle. But if for some reason Jason and Tammy come back and say we can use that pole, then we'll revert back to the prior permit. That make
You
sense?
okay with that?
Yeah, I'm just, so Mike, you're recommending three, not just if we can't use it, throw it away and replace it?
Well, I mean, Eric did say that he would take the pole and
I'm just
they
saying
would dispose
independent
of it.
that. If it's not compatible for whatever reason, you're agreeable to two light poles?
Yeah, I
and
mean, it-
sandwiched, or do you want two?
Well, no, I just want the 5G tower without a light in between the
Between
two.
the two, so you want
Yeah.
three poles in the.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I don't like the whole damn thing, but, you know.
Like is a relative term, right?
I didn't know if you want a pole to replace it with two,
Right,
lights on it. Okay,
thank you.
all right.
Thanks, Mike. All right, I'll make a motion to approve 11805 contingent upon engineering department reviewing compatibility with our current lights on public rights of way.
I'll second it.
Motion by Scott, second by Jeff, or Jason. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Mike, for your input. Is there any other agenda, are there any other agenda items, Chris?
Special thanks to Carrie Adriano for putting the board
Yes.
meeting minutes and agenda together, filling in, doing
Yeah.
double duty, so.
As if she
thank
didn't
you.
have enough to do already.
Exactly.
And attesting it.
Yes. Okay, well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.